Hello. You're on mute.
Okay, now I'm not muted. And I'm also not Rebecca Torres. But
we know that.
But we know that. Okay, and I'm gonna leave it because I don't want to change it.
Then she'll have to just change it back, right?
She'll have to change it back, and I don't want to make work for Becky. So
fair enough.
Or any more work for Becky, because we all have plenty of work to do. So
how are you doing? I haven't seen you since you got sick and better.
I know, I'm better. I'm totally better. I had a very mild case.
Thank God for
that. But then right after, as shortly, I don't know, I think right as I was recovering, my brother came down with it just coincidentally. And he ended up being hospitalized. But he's home and doing much better. He was in the hospital for a week. Yesterday, so he went home last Monday, and then yesterday I brought him a bunch of homemade food, and he had been feeling really well, and yesterday he didn't feel well. But COVID does that,
it's not a straight line.
No, it's not. And so he felt much better today and actually worked today. So that was good.
Hey, Michelle. Well, I'm so glad to see you. I have been thinking so much about, I know you said not to worry, that you were doing okay. So I was trying not to worry.
Right. Yes. And, it's interesting. A few people, so now if people ask me, I tell them. And people were like, well, why didn't you tell us? And because it's, well, first of all, you don't make an announcement, and then I knew that people would worry, and believe me, I was worried enough for all of us.
I can imagine.
Yes, yeah. So, but yes.
Are you talking about my mom?
No.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed what we were.
I'm going to mute myself because I hear something going on upstairs.
Okay.
Okay. Oops, it won't let me mute myself. What's going on?
She thinks she's muted. You're not muted, just so you know.
I'm not muted?
No.
Hey, Brad. All right. Hi, Savannah.
Hi, Savannah. Hi, Brad. Happy New Year.
Be better. So I'm actually going to be typing on a different computer. So I'm on Zoom on one computer and I'm working on the other. So will be interesting.
Wow. Hey, there's Melanie. There's Michelle. Hey, y'all.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Sorry if I'm a little late.
No, we're just this is our few minutes of gathering time, and
okay, good.
Marianne is here. It's Marianne, not Becky. And
oh, okay, I was confused. Yeah.
We have a visitor.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Michelle. I'm going to run the meeting, but Michelle did the agenda, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't have that, so we'll just say things as we go. But that's
do you need the agenda, Michelle? Because I can quickly.
I don't have it in front of me. It was basically just to review the minutes, the annual report, and the director's report, and miscellaneous. If there was something else we needed to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty straightforward tonight.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, here's Marianne. She's back. She's well.
Yes.
And, welcome.
All right.
Did
Shall I
any-
say the thing that we say every time about the,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
counselor?
Thanks,
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay.
So, the meeting is commencing now at, what time is it? 7:33. So following the governor's restrictions on public meetings, this meeting is being held virtually using zoom.com for remote participation. The public may access it following the instructions on this meeting's agenda posted on the town calendar, and the website is here. Done.
Great, thank you. So welcome, happy Monday. We are meeting on the first Monday of the Biden administration.
I just saw the articles of impeachment being walked over to the Senate. That was just on
Yeah,
TV.
like just 15 minutes ago.
Yep. Yep.
So just, a note. So it's really good to see you all. Really good. And it's really good to have Marianne with us and healthy. And so we have a pretty tight agenda tonight. We're just going to review the minutes from last month's meeting. We're going to take a look at, I think, the director's report first, and then the annual report, and then just any new business that we didn't identify, and then set our meeting for February, and we'll be good. Does that sound right? Does anyone have anything that they know we need to add to tonight's agenda? All right, I'm hearing none. So thank you, Michelle C., for sending around the minutes from the last meeting. Does everybody have those? Does anyone need a minute to just review those? You are not audible to me, Michelle Cunningham.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
It was brief. The minutes were brief.
I'd like to make a motion to accept them as written unless somebody has an objection, because they looked good to me.
I
Second that.
All right,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye. All right,
Aye.
minutes approved.
So, all right, and then we have the director's report, which Marianne sent around and sort of rebooted today, sort of bumped up for us today. So any questions, Marianne, anything you want to highlight for us from the director's report?
Brad, did you want to say something?
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sure you've told me this before. What is the expendable trust? What is the SPEAR?
Oh, that's a good thing to bring up, actually. So in 1933, I believe, William Spear, who was Myrick Spear's son, gave to the library some, I think it was telephone company stock, and at some point that stock was, converted into something to cash somehow, and it's held in a trust. So the Spear Library Trust, and it's for the languages, the care and keeping of the library. And that, so the trust is the principal, and it's a $78,000-ish. And then the interest goes into the Spear Expendable Trust. And we have been spending from the Expendable Trust for a little bit towards the library budget each year. And then I had these numbers before the last meeting, but I didn't get them. I didn't report them to you. So because Kate had asked about the numbers, and I'm looking for that. It was, and so the interest is pretty low. It's, it's kind of the lowest that it's been. So if we can, and we've been spending $1,000 a year from the trust, and if we keep spending $1,000 a year from the Expendable Trust, eventually we'll deplete it. So so anyway, I wasn't gonna make a recommendation in the director's report. That's just information. And then I thought you all could make a decision about how much of that, how much we want to spend. So when we made the budget, I had put in 1,000, and that's what brought this question up. But I don't think we should spend $1,000.
Not if we're not making it.
No,
Yeah.
We
Right,
should-
now that was what we spent in the past.
for the past, handful of years, we've been
Okay.
spending 1,000.
Okay.
Um, so,
Yeah,
I'm fine with any, with any sort of amount. Maybe we could say we'd spend half of that, say 350, make it a nice round number. 500 would be easier to do the math, but not that much. No matter what, I'm gonna be using a calculator. So
well, a couple of things occur to me. One is that last year was a really tough year for the kind of assets that our money is probably invested in, right? And so I'm not surprised that we had a pretty low rate of return. But yeah, I think as a practice, we estimate what the trust can contribute to the annual budget, right? And then I would like us to adopt as a practice, amending that when we see what our actual take was in interest from the previous year. So 500, I mean, we're not trying to make money on this. We're not trying to, expand the capital, but we don't want to deplete it. And it needs to, in order to continue to be of some use, it needs to keep up with inflation as well, because otherwise it will just, it won't be as worth as much overall. So it would be really great if we were able to get a sort of a, percentage. I don't know what that percentage represents, Marianne, but it seems pretty low.
a percentage of what?
Of the capital that we that appreciated essentially this year. So if it's $672, what percentage of that is of the capital is that? Does that represent? Because that will estimate in the future.
Okay.
What we
All right.
can
So if the
spend.
capital is 78,000,
Yeah, that's like, we're not making any money. Is there
Right.
any way to review the investment on that? Because we really should be outperforming that. That's awful.
yeah, except that, well, so when Gabriel Volker was the treasurer, she explained that there are only certain types of things that,
Yeah. There's trustee
know.
assets, and I get that, but that's not keeping up with inflation, so we're losing money.
right.
Right.
So I'll ask the current treasurer that question. He actually works at a bank. So he might have some ideas. So I'll ask him.
I mean, honestly, at that rate of return, we might consider whether we're allowed to buy a CD or something, which would at least outperform that. I mean, that's really bad.
Yeah.
It
what
is, because actually when I think of it, so the Friends have a CD that has $100,000 in it, and that was getting a couple of $100 a month. And I don't think it is now, but so I'll ask him. I'll ask him and see what he says. Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Uh,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Who
I
are you at?
should at
Who are you
least target,
asking,
like,
Marianne?
the treasurer.
The
Town
town
treasurer?
treasurer,
Okay.
I'm gonna ask him, how is it invested? And then if we can do
There's
something.
another way, if there's another way that would get better
Yes.
return.
Uh,
Mhm.
You know, so
Because
over time, we need 4% to spend money and keep up with inflation, right?
Oh, yeah, all right. Well, anyway, why don't we see?
So,
what it says?
If
There aren't
I'm
any-
calculating correctly, that's like, we're getting less than 1%.
Exactly. It's a savings account, basically.
I was
So,
shocked. I've never seen such a low interest before on that trust. That's just, yeah.
And is there in the past, has there been an amount of money that, in terms of the capital, that we have decided not to go below? You know what I mean? Like we have
principal?
to make sure that we are like yes, sorry. The
Yeah, so
principal,
the
like if we-
principal we've never touched. So we
Okay.
don't ever touch the principal. We only spend from the
Okay.
interest.
Okay,
So we've gotten at least $1,000 because we've been doing about 1,000. Okay. And this year, what is the number this year?
762.
72 for the last
Yes.
fiscal year.
672. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first payment of the current fiscal year that they could report, there might be a second one now, was like just over $100. So, even
Even
worse.
worse.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
well, I
so, I
think
mean,
it would be responsible for us to at least look into this, but treasurer,
Yeah.
I'm just like spouting a bunch of stuff here. We have an actual treasurer, so is there
Yeah.
anything here that you want
Right.
to?
Yeah, I'll send him an email asking about it and asking if he knows of a way that we could do better or,
Right. And Brad,
so-
this is okay with you? This all
Yeah.
makes sense? Okay, just. all right.
Sounds
oh,
great.
this treasurer. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Our treasurer.
Yeah, great. All right, thank you. Anything else in the director's report?
I just wanted to mention that about the donations from the Friends of the Library, the Giving Tuesday year-end fund drive. I mean, it sounds like if I'm reading this correctly, we did a lot better than last year and the year before that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
that's
did.
amazing.
And that, that might be in part because we didn't do Giving Tuesday in the spring. Well, not Giving Tuesday, Library Giving Day.
Yeah.
And so because we have the 2 years before that brought in about $15,000, we didn't do that. We did do a small fund drive in the spring for programming. And so it might be that we made up some of the money we didn't make in the spring. But in any case, I mean, it was really very generous.
Yeah.
So,
Did we want to tout that a little bit in the next Our Town? I know that Friends did individual thank yous, but I wondered if we wanted to have a sort of a town-wide message that, we really appreciate in these difficult times that the people who were able to,
so the next Our Town is due this Friday.
Okay, so
So-
maybe-
and so that is like high on my list of things to work on. And so I will include that, okay.
That'd be great, Marion.
Fabulous.
It has to be messaged in a way that, we understand that this is a really hard year for a lot of people. So
Right.
we don't want anybody to feel like they should have given if they couldn't.
Right. And, when we asked, we said, if you can, or if you're able, and both times that we made appeals this year and just to sort of tone down the ask. And, the other thing about this was we didn't do a mailing. We have done hand addressed mailings to known donors, the past, a couple of times a year. And we did not, this was just, a next door Shutesbury post, a town announce. When, I have a bunch of class lists, they all got it in with their Zoom links. But so it didn't cost us anything. It's expensive to do a mailing.
Yeah.
And then hand addressing 230 envelopes is that's a big work crew. So anyway, it's, there are different things, but yes, I'll make sure to include a thank you message on that library page.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
The handwritten thank yous were really nice.
Yeah, those are a work in progress, but they're coming along. So
Yeah,
yes, yeah. I had 3 different volunteers working with those. So
Anything else on the director's report, folks?
No, but nice comments. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
great.
I get those. And what I need to do is start sort of just saving them in a folder because I
Yeah.
do, I get them and I get pictures and pictures of kids doing activities or, with, sitting with a pile of books and I thought that you would like to see
Oh, that was
those
great.
too
Thank you for
again this
sharing.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're ever having a bad day too,
Mm.
like you just
Yeah.
pull those up.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And especially the one, from the person, every once in a while I get a thank you note from somebody who I never see. I know who they are, but they don't borrow things from the library. They don't come to programs. But I get a note just like that one, just like, oh geez, I noticed what you're doing and I really appreciate it, even though even though I'm not participating, I'm glad that it's there for other
Mhm.
people. And I think that's a really meaningful thing to say. That's a lot of sort of what we do. We provide the library for everybody, and even though everybody doesn't always participate in it, it's good for everybody, and it's nice that people see that value. So, I thought that was, and I
That
get
affirmed.
that kind of message.
Michelle?
I just have one question that's sort of related, but not. It's about the Girl Scouts. How do you get cookies? I know that in the past people have sold them at the library, but
Yeah, these two Girl Scouts have sold cookies at the library. You have to order cookies online.
order online.
Yeah, during the pandemic.
Okay, so
Um,
do you like to just put in Shutesbury and I'll be able to find the Girl Scouts in Shutesbury?
I think so. Yeah, I think if you did a search, and
Okay.
if I see it, I haven't ordered any Girl Scout cookies, because I'm an old cranky person who's annoyed that you have to order them online. But and but I think you will. And if I see a link, I can send it to you.
Thank
But
you. Okay.
but they're not going to be set up at the mall or
Yeah, they were standing with a sign at Starbucks the other day, but it was like you didn't know where you're supposed to get them from. It said, help us reach our goal. And I didn't even know what it was related to till we were
Right.
leaving. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't that a nice report?
Yeah, that's great. All right, anything else? I don't remember. So funny. I've been doing this for years. Do we vote on the approving the director's report? I believe we do. So a
I think
motion.
so, yeah. Yeah.
All right, I have a motion from Brad. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the director's report?
Aye.
Aye. Yay. All right. Next thing is the annual report, which I'm just going to go ahead and use the chair prerogative to say, wow, I was sort of stunned. I was not expecting an almost 10% increase in circulation in 2020 when we were closed most of the time to the public.
Well, we were closed the last quarter because it's the fiscal year. So
But even so,
yes,
that was
yes.
like the beginning of this, the first quarter of the shutdown, basically,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And you still went up over
Yes.
the year.
Yes.
Sort of amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of amazing. And I had Tim Logan, I ran all the numbers by him because he's an accountant. So and he likes to be kept busy. So and so I was like, are you sure? And so yes, even in a pandemic, our circulation went up, and some of that is the increase in online, digital resources, and then the increase in digital use.
Yeah.
But we expected that. And it's and some of that is because people now have broadband, and they didn't have it before.
Marianne, I think your numbers, when you get to the 9.8%, am I right that that's total circulation of all
Yes.
kinds? I like that,
Yes.
actually. I like showing the total of everything and then breaking it down as you have. I like viewing things in that way.
Okay, good.
I really liked how you clearly articulated everything that you did along the way. I thought that made the report really clear. Like,
Yeah,
like you
and
said, some
that was
libraries weren't doing much and you were already starting curbside. I think it's really great to document that.
right. And that was what kind of took the longest. I was like, all right, I have to write about COVID. And I started kind of writing about it in each section. And then I said, well, this isn't working. And then I had a talk with Linda, the select board secretary, whose job it is to pull the annual report together. And I said, I really feel like I have to write about COVID. And she said, yes, you do have to write about COVID. And so that's why we have a whole page of, this was the year, even though the zoo came and we had 80 people, this was the year. And because next year we'll also have to write about COVID. And this is going to be part of that. Never before have I felt like this really mattered as part of the historical record.
Yeah, that's what I was
um,
thinking. That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, and so it was interesting to kind of go back, and I was like, okay, when was the first case? And because we were all aware of that, and and then when did I start acting? And I love writing that we don't have running water. I think that's a really important thing to, because
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
point out. And I mean, I don't really love writing it, but I feel like it's an important
It's
thing.
important. Yeah.
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 And just to sort of, so anyway, I mean, if there's anything in there that you think doesn't belong in there,
No, I thought it was so thorough. I made like no comments. I just thought it was really well done. So, and very thorough. My point of view anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that, the setting of the context, like you said, that's the first thing that occurred to me when I saw he had done it, is you are contributing to our local record of how the pandemic affected us and how we responded to it. And it's really important. So do we have other questions or thoughts about the annual report? Excuse
Yeah,
me.
I just had a comment and a question, which is, the question is, I don't know if it's directly related to the report, it's kind of related to the future, but my comment is just that, it's just this annual report and everything that you've done is so amazing, Marianne. I'm blown away by how much you, as one person, one dedicated member of this community, has been able to to just I don't know, I'm almost speechless at everything that you've accomplished in this incredibly difficult time this year. And I think about how libraries have been so important at every step in my life, from when I was a little kid, and the programming, and high school and college, and and when I had little kids, and just moving to this community with this tiny little library, and how how you are, in a lot of ways, you as a human being in charge of this library is like the heartbeat of the community, and just to the way that you've kind of hugged and kept community going and everything together during the pandemic through everything that's been offered through the library is just astonishing. This report is astonishing to me. So I just want to say that. I mean, I know everybody thinks that, and it's obvious, and I'm not saying it very gracefully, but it blows my mind what you've been able to accomplish here.
I'm so glad
I,
to see that.
yeah, go ahead,
ahead,
and I'll go after you, Kate. Sorry.
It's funny because one of the services that you're doing for us, Melanie, is saying something that we all know, but we've been working with Marianne many of us in this capacity for several years, and some of us for many, many years. And we are a little inured to it. It doesn't astonish us as it should. but it is astonishing.
It is. It's
Really
astonishing.
And so you're sparking that for me, and I'm very grateful. Thank you. Sorry, Michelle Cunningham.
Yes, and what I wanted to add is I know we've been putting we've been putting so much like time and research and effort into this whole raise thing, and I kind of feel like we should just ask for the raise and that Marianne should get it. I mean, there is so much that we can just say about what exactly what we're talking about now that's been going on, and I just don't think we need to do any more research or committee work that like it's just so obvious, and
I
we
do
should
think
just
we need to
ask for
rework
it.
we do need to rework the job description, and that I'm going to do the Our Town newsletter and then the job description and then meet with Michelle and Melanie.
Yep.
And I
Okay.
just didn't really feel like doing that while I had COVID.
No, that's fine. I agree with that, but I just don't think we
Yes.
need to do any more research
Yeah.
or committees
No,
on it.
no,
No, I
no.
agree
And,
with that.
you know, and I know, I mean, there are a lot of libraries that are really doing a lot of amazing work. But they're not one person, you know. And I do have Cynthia, and I have had, Ella, who is Melanie's daughter, has helped a lot. And then I have another volunteer who helped a lot over the summer. And then, and so, and there are people who help with pieces here and there, but really, but I do a lot. And it's, and I do, when Rosie Heitkamp was the director in Wendell, she made everybody else look like a slacker. The Wendell Library hasn't had a program since,
She
since
left.
Rosie
Oh,
left.
oh, dear.
And we have a shared grant, and I'm not 100% sure the money has to be spent by October 1st. I'm not 100% sure she's going to be able to do that, and I'm gonna, not only do I have that grant, but I have other grants, but that's okay. She's doing other things and she's learning and she's new, but I really do a lot, but I also get a lot of satisfaction out of it. So it's as good for me as it is for everybody else.
It shows, yeah, it does. I
So,
remember reading in the paper like that Sunderland and places like the Jones weren't even open yet when you were already doing curbside, and we were already talking about when you would be able to open
Right.
up to browse. So yeah,
Right.
you've gone beyond.
Yeah.
And it
So-
shows.
one thing I wanted to comment about is that while I was reading this, I was thinking that that what struck me the most was the flexibility of what happened during this period of time. So 1 minute it's closed, then next minute there's curbside, next minute there's no curbside, and then there's going to the post office to mail these things, and then there's, and I really felt like it's true that you're the only person, and because you're the only person, that the ability to pivot like that was really quick and really helpful. I mean, I
Yes.
felt like there was always something going on. There was never a moment when it felt like, oh my gosh, well, I guess the library is done for the duration. So
Right.
I just wanted to say that that's what I came away with, that was,
Right.
there was this sort of ability to just kind of move with the changes and the differences and so on. And it was really great. I mean, I think people were able to have a continuity of service that might not have been there otherwise,
Right. And early, really, really early, I don't think I ever even told any of you about this because it was all so fast. And I was just like running the whole entire time. And so early on, Becky did, like they had all of these online things for town administrators with the assistant governor. And Becky got the impression that I should be staying home and that there shouldn't be any library services at all, and that I shouldn't even be going into the library. And So, and I knew that other library directors were. So I very quickly turned that around, and it was just something she heard. And then, and then you can sort of choose how you're going to interpret things, right? So because I'm pretty well connected to directors across the state, and and I don't act like a director of the world's smallest library with no running water. Um, you know, um, I, I could latch on to the way, the way people were interpreted as, well, of course the director has to be in the building. This is a public facility, and I wasn't worried about catching the virus from myself. So, and then other people didn't feel comfortable doing that, and I didn't care what other people were doing, and in places where they do have a big staff and everybody, one of the things about this pandemic is that it really has created a lot of anxiety, and so people with a big staff have to take into account, sort of the feelings of all of the different people working there. And I will say, Cynthia's a champion. She's just awesome. Um, and we have a way of working around each other and communicating and getting everything done. Um, and so anyway, I think it's gone as well as we could expect it to go. And even so, like I have a bunch of stuff planned for our town for Friday about, scheduling things using the online calendar and what the schedule is now. But I'm going to say this is all subject to change. Like, people are like, oh, I have an old bookmark with these hours. And I was like, we're in a state of an emergency and we're not making a new bookmark, during a state of emergency. And someday we'll go back to the old hours, I think, and then those bookmarks will be fine. But anyway,
Hold on to those bookmarks.
hold on. Anyway, I'm still having fun. So, and this is being
Good.
recorded.
Good.
So, yeah.
So, are you, my other question is a little bit about the report and a little bit looking forward, which is that did the finance committee decide to give you that extra $2,000 for programming? And if they haven't, when are you going to find out? If you don't know yet.
So I don't know yet. They probably haven't finalized their budget. The very good news is that that revenues across the state are actually quite high. And so even in a pandemic, so they're seeing, I think the state is anticipating a 3.4% increase in revenues. And the state is planning on fully funding aid to cities and towns. So Shutesbury doesn't have sales tax or meals tax, so we have our personal property taxes and
Excuse me.
And state aid. So the finance committee won't have their budget made until closer to town meeting, and we don't know when town meeting is going to be. It's supposed to be the last Saturday in April, but I imagine it will be later so that we can do it outside again. So closer to the end of June. And I think we probably won't know for sure until the budget is printed, but but I continue to, so Becky's the one who fills in the numbers, the town administrator. And I keep telling her I want it. So
How did that happen to come up at the finance committee?
You asked for it, didn't you?
yeah, I asked
Oh,
for it.
okay,
I gave
okay.
them I gave them two budgets. And I have talked to a couple of individual finance committee members, and I can continue to do that too. I don't think there's any reason why I can't do that.
Cool.
So,
Mary
You're
Ann,
basically saying that the state's 3.4% increase is going to be coming down to the cities and towns.
Well,
Right.
so they're planning on fully funding state aid to cities and towns. So one of the concerns that cities and towns have is that there will be a reduction in state aid. So that's our tax dollars that go to the state that then come back to us. But we're not expecting a reduction in state aid.
Right, Brad was trying to get in, I think.
Mary Ann, you said something that went by really fast that I think I took exception to, which was,
Okay.
if memory serves, you said we did about as well as expected. And I don't think we did about as well. I think we did far better than what anybody could have expected to happen in the coronavirus, in the pandemic. And I'm just adding my bit to what everybody else was saying. Thank you. You do an amazing job.
Here, here. So Marianne, the only other thing that I thought, and this, is probably not in line with your modest self, and yet, it's a story. And it's a feel-good story at a time when people could use one.
Yeah.
And is there a way we could pitch this? Because it's a great story. I mean, every single thing, if you just look through the annual report, it's got a great lead. It's you saw everything coming and planned ahead for it.
You're talking about to the newspaper?
Yeah.
I
yeah,
had the same thought recently, Kate. I really did. I felt like
Yeah.
you've done so much. There's all these great stories about what's been going on during the pandemic. You went beyond the call of duty and to serve the community. I agree. I mean, I really have the same thought.
Does anyone have a connection at the Globe?
Oh,
I'd rather
connection
see
at
it
the
be
Globe.
local in a way, because what
Yeah.
I'd like to see it do is help us build her a new library and get her a raise. And I don't think the Globe's going to help us do that. Although it would be, it should be a national story.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but what we need politically is a local story. So,
So there's a young woman who lives in town. And now there are a lot of young people who live in town, and I'm so old now that I start calling people young woman, right? But she's she's got to be 30. And she she writes, I mean, my God, the local newspapers. Who knows how many people actually work for our local newspapers. But she wrote a story about Celebrate Shutesbury one year that was in maybe the Gazette. It was in the Recorder. Her name is Ashley. I'll find out if she still writes for the paper. And then I'm friends with Steve Fox, who's a UMass journalism professor. I mean, he actually wrote for the Washington Post, and I can ask him if he knows someone.
Jim Henry's got a really good relationship with one of the sort of culture beat reporters for the Gazette. I could ask him too.
Okay.
To make an introduction, but do your two first, and then let me know if you need that.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So the way that it's been working, so the Recorder has, I think once a month, there's a library story. And they, about 2 years ago, they sent out an email to librarians in Franklin County saying, we'll include news about libraries, but we need you to write it. So there are a bunch of library directors who take turns writing things. And this is not something I can write about myself. Although maybe tomorrow morning I'll get up and write it, but but it's not in my nature to brag about myself. Like I do not think the annual report comes off as me bragging about myself, right? No. Okay. Alrighty.
No, it's not. But it's a great story.
Yeah.
And there is actually a heroine.
So I think it would be better in the Gazette. I think more people get the Gazette up here. But also it's the same editor now, so she might put it in both. But
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She might.
So Marianne, let us know if there's anything that we can do. I mean, I get why this would be uncomfortable for you to pitch. Okay, I totally get that. But it's a great story, and I think it would be super helpful, particularly if we could find a way to message how much harder this has been because you can't wash your hands.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I'm just thinking, oh, I'm going to add to that a little bit. I'm just thinking that, you know, even going to see these, speaking to these two people, or, you know, that you're going to, you know, that you happen to know that do newspapers, to just say that the trustees are really interested in having a story written about our library. And, you know, if you think that'd be something that interest, you know, that you're going to refer them to us.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That sounds great. And if there's interest, I could make a little message box that we've, you know, the format that we've used before, and we could split it up and she could talk to a few different people, some of the trustees, but also just patrons and community members. We could do a little, you know, we could do a little package. What I've learned is if you package these things and make it easier for them to write, then there's a greater chance of them actually doing it. So yeah, I thank you for, I know this is, if I were in your shoes, I would feel distinctly awkward right now, Miriam, but thank you for indulging, because I think it could be really helpful and it's certainly deserved.
So I think you need to approve the annual report.
Yep.
I move.
Oh, yes, we do, don't we?
Yeah, so I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second,
All right. All in favor of enthusiastically approving the amazing work reflected in the annual report, say aye.
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 Hi.
All right.
Can I ask another quick question?
Yeah.
About just I've been thinking about how to counter arguments that, you know, we shouldn't be spending money in the library, and, you know, because of this, that, and the other thing, and why are you doing programming, and all the different kinds of objections that sometimes come up, right? And, you know, there's the obvious answers, but then I started thinking about, you know, is there research on the impact of community libraries on things like public health, on things like, you know, children's health and nutrition, on things like, you know, on literacy rates, on, you know, things that like save communities money, you know, and like when people are less isolated during COVID because of library services. Now, of course, the particular research related to COVID wouldn't be out yet, right? Nobody's done that research yet. But I'm wondering if there's been other similar research that show that when you have free library services and people feel less isolated, particular populations of people, that it decreases the incidence of certain kinds of, you know, social problems, public health problems, issues that end up costing communities more money. And I just wonder if you know anything, if anyone's done that type of research.
Yeah. The short answer, yes. And a lot of it is pulled together in a book that Eric Kleinenberg put out a couple years ago on
Okay.
sort of community well-being and social cohesion. And it's
Palaces
really
for the people.
Palaces for the People. That's right. I couldn't remember what the book was called.
Palaces for the people?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we have it at the library.
Yeah.
And he did not start out to so he was studying communities that fared better after sort of environmental disasters.
Yeah. He does a lot of work on disaster and climate related disaster.
Right. And what helps communities have resiliency. And then he discovered that communities that had strong libraries, you know, that they had resiliency, and he, you know, so
Yeah.
anyway, it's that book is like
Oh,
a
cool.
library.
Wait,
And
is that
it's
an old
not
book?
just-
Or is that a new book? Or is
Yeah,
that
it's
a
it's not brand new, it's not cutting edge, but it's within the last 2 or 3 years, and it's certainly in line with the more sort of state of the art climate adaptation and resilience work that I've been, you know, looking at. Particularly, I think there's evidence that it's sort of beyond what we normally think of as resilience in terms of your ability to bounce back, but it actually gives you an ability to bounce forward past where you might have been. You know, it can take communities a really, really long time to recover from a major disaster. You know, in many cases, in many neighborhoods, 20 years, we still see income effects. But places with strong social networks and institutions like libraries certainly perform a lot better. So, and that is a steady effect regardless of income, which is really interesting. So anyway, yeah, it's right where we want to be.
Yeah.
The work that Marianne is doing.
Really, and I think the feedback that I get from the fitness classes, you know, just sort of like, I remember once when I was asking the Council on Aging to fund some fitness classes, they were like, well, you know, you can go on to YouTube and do a yoga class at any time of any day. But I said, yeah, but it's not us together with our known instructor doing our yoga class. And it's been so interesting. So Kathy Sword, who's been teaching classes for the library for a long time now, you know, what I explained it the other day, I was like, well, like I was always on the run. I'd get the class up and running and then run off to the next thing. And I didn't really, you know, like the first class I watched for 10 or 15 minutes and I was like, yep, this is good. These people seem happy, off to the next thing. And now I still don't participate in her class, but I have it. You have to keep an ear, and because sometimes there are problems with Zoom, and so I hear it, and then I can just see the difference in sort of people's demeanors at the beginning of the class and at the end of the class, and I can hear her voice, and I can hear that it's comforting to people. And somebody said to me the other day, it's like she comes out of the computer screen, you know, and you know, so we've got these really good instructors, and you know, and they're willing to do it, and people are just loving the classes, and they can't go to the gym. You know, it is not safe to go to the gym. I don't care what anybody says. And you know, and so our participation is like way through the roof because nobody has to leave their house. They, you know, and they can't be anywhere else. And it's also just really good for people. You know, it's
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
As someone who participates 4 times a week, yes, it's really good
Yes,
for people.
yeah,
Sometimes the conversations before at the beginning of the class is kind of
right.
nice and
Yes,
interesting. Yeah.
yes.
So there's
And then
definitely
these little,
connections.
these take-home kits that I make for kids as much as I possibly can. It's such little things, but you know what? And I didn't invent the idea. You know, I'm sure I saw somebody else doing it first, but I've invented each and every one of my kits, and and I so I know that when my kids were little, that I would have gone to the library to get those things under these circumstances, and that it would have been so my husband travels a lot for business, and he did that even when our kids were little. So I was here alone with my 2 little kids, and there were days when I got through a half hour at a time. You know, there were days that weren't quite as arduous, you know, but there were days. And so I just think, like, when I make these kits, I think this is going to get the family through a half hour, you know, and in a free, fun, simple way. And they didn't have to go find the flour and go, you know, and get this, you know, like we give them everything packaged up and pre-measured and labeled, and you know, and it just is like, oh, and here's this thing. And then, you know, then those kids know that somebody in their community cared about them, you know, and, you know, whether or not they even can articulate it in that way, when they're 30, they'll be able to articulate it in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
that's right.
it's, yeah,
Or even 13.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is just amazing to think about. And there's so many pieces of this story. And I do hope we can find some ways to get it told. And it's really, what a great way to start our new year of meetings with a celebration of extraordinary work. I know, Marianne, that there's some more weird stuff coming COVID wise, right? There's variations and they're more contagious and we don't know exactly how this is going to play out. And one of the things that's giving me confidence and hope is the knowledge that you're going to be thinking ahead about that you're going to call on us if you need our support in any way. But that you're going to be planning ahead for whatever you can with the next stage of this until we find our way through it. And I think that's really great. The only other programming idea that and I know that the we have a public health department and they're going to be all in on this, but whether there's anything that we can do on vaccination education and acceptance, whether that's an appropriate role for the library to play. It might be something to think about. Maybe you already have.
We did do a vaccine program a number of years ago. So we did a program, it was Vaccine was 101, and a doctor who has a practice in Amherst came up and gave a presentation. And a little while ago when there was a measles outbreak, a parent, so we had that program and I think 10 people came. But anyway, I could think about that and I could talk to the Board of Health about that. Because I was actually thinking about that, would people, so there were people who went to that program who then made the decision to have their children vaccinated. And I do make a point on my personal social media of when I see, oh my God, these disgusting organizations that present themselves as professional organizations of doctors when they're not, when they're really like anti-gay organizations disguised as doctors. I do I usually private message the person and say, these people aren't who they say they are. And this is the American Academy of Pediatrics with 70,000 doctors. And this is 500, anti-gay activists. So anyway, I'll think about that and I'll talk to the Board of Health about it because they actually really appreciated the vaccine program that I did. And it's, and this is a really big deal. We do have a high percentage of children at Shutesbury Elementary School who are not vaccinated. But this vaccine is not for children.
Right.
Not yet anyway. Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of adults who are still feeling hesitant. I mean, Dr. Fauci the other day was just saying that that's going to be the biggest challenge, convincing people who are feeling hesitant. And I think it was probably that stupid name called warp speed. So everybody feels like it's been rushed and it's not safe,
Yeah, it's really, really bad messaging.
My own mother was like really hesitant, and my aunt, who's almost 90 in Florida, same thing, feeling hesitant.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for entertaining. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm noticing that we're pretty close to time now.
Yeah.
And I thank you for entertaining that idea. I'm sure we all appreciate that thought. So any other business for us this evening, apart from setting our next meeting? Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, there you go. We had that agenda item that we didn't get to last time. Working on, where do I have the agenda? The subcommittee on the job description.
Oh, yeah, so we did discuss that briefly. So Marianne had some next steps that she wasn't able to take because of being ill.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going to do some work on that once she gets the, the couple of things that you need to do, the our town submission, then you're going to turn your mind to that. And then you can convene the working group and then we'll pick up when we need to.
Okay. And then we can have that be an agenda item next month. Okay.
If we're ready for that.
If we're ready, yeah.
I'm hoping you'll let us know.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, so now, even though I have some level of immunity now, probably, I'm still not going to, I feel like by stopping letting people in the library when I did, I averted a potential disaster.
Yeah.
And, and
Yep.
so, so the numbers are still very high. We've got the new variant. Even though I'm safe, somebody else could come in and leave, and then the next person who came in might not be safe. And I just think with the numbers of cases, and just so that if other people ask you, about this, even though we've done a lot of work to make it safe, it really isn't safe. And
Safer.
it's safer. And when we've got 4 and 5 and 6,000 cases a day in the state, I think we can just wait and I can bring things outside to people. So,
Thank you.
okay.
I don't see any disagreement with that. All right, can we?
So we've got approvals, library director job description for the agenda for next meeting. Is there anything else on the agenda?
Not usually for this time of year that I remember. Maybe we'll hear back from the town treasurer on the expendable trust and a higher rate of return. Yeah, we'll try. I think that's it. Thanks, Michelle. And normally we would meet on the 15th, which is President's Day. So maybe not. Do we have preferences about the 28th, 22nd or the 8th? The 8th feels really soon to me. So the 22nd would feel better for me. Does that work for y'all?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, next meeting, 7:30, 22nd.
Okay,
via Zoom.
awesome.
Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
being able to be with y'all again virtually and then soon in person too. All right, thank you
Right,
so
thank you
much.
all.
We're
Bye.
here.
Thank
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.